this little earpiece is what I use.
Yeah, I had the other one, but it hurts my ears, and you
Oh,
know,
you're doing this all day too, right?
yeah,
With the
right,
work.
right. Yeah, 8 hours a day. So, but the sound quality is good.
Yeah, sounds great. I don't hear any echo. I don't. Sounds really good to me.
Perfect.
The city of New York, Boricua from the Bronx.
If you would, please, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. How are you? I'm Dr. Jordan Stern. I am an ear, nose, and throat specialist, and I founded a company called BlueSleep. And BlueSleep is now doing diagnosis and treatment of sleep apnea and snoring by telemedicine. We've been doing telemedicine for a very long time, way before COVID, but it sure came in handy during COVID. And for the past 10 months, we've been seeing more and more and more patients with sleep problems, and they've been able to reach out to one of our sleep specialists, usually within 4 to 5 hours online. And we've been treating everything from insomnia to sleep apnea to other types of more unusual sleep disorders. And we've been able to do the testing by shipping small sensors to people at home, which they keep, and we've been able to get their data through their phone. So it's become a very, very easy way to get diagnosed and treated
Right
for
there.
sleep apnea and snoring. And here is the sensor.
Yep.
It's
Tiny little device.
small. You got it, right?
I will attest that the difference between this and the way I did it the first time was night and day. Also, I should note that I was able to complete the entire process with you guys of seeing the first appointment, getting the sleep test, getting the prescription within about 3 to 4 days, when the doctor that I was going to see initially hadn't even seen me on the first initial consultation. He won't be able to see me for at least 2 weeks
Yeah.
just to talk to me. So
Yeah.
it should be noted how much faster this was doing it through BlueSleep. It's clearly something that
I'm glad that you were able to experience it, and I'm glad that you had a great experience. I mean, medicine is changing, and we have this great medical technology in all specialties. Before I did sleep as a specialty, I was a cancer surgeon, and my specialty was throat cancer surgery. I did that for about 20 years. And why I changed to treating sleep disorders? Because more people die from sleep apnea than from throat cancer.
wow,
It's a
really?
very, very, very common disorder. And because of what you just described, that it's so difficult to get an appointment, and it's so difficult to get a sleep test, and it's so difficult to get the treatment, most people abandon the journey to get treated for sleep. And without sleep, we can't function. I mean, without sleep, we can't think, we can't focus. Without sleep, our blood pressure starts rising. Without sleep, we get all sorts of medical problems that, the primary care doctors try to treat, like weight gain, like diabetes, like erectile dysfunction, and all these things that everybody's trying to treat with drugs. But the first thing we need to address is getting good sleep. And speaking to my staff, for example, who are professionals, who make it easy to have that conversation. As I said, within a couple of days you can be diagnosed and treated. We're a New York City based company, but we have medical licenses in other states, and people reach out to us. But we need more people to know about us. So I'm glad that I have the opportunity to chat with you and let your listeners find out about what we do. And perhaps you have questions for me that I think are obvious because I'm the specialist. I've been doing this for a long time. But feel free to ask me questions that certainly might benefit your listeners, because I know that lots of people have lots of questions about even what is sleep apnea and how do you treat it, and does everybody need the mask, because people don't want the mask. Other questions I get is, does the home sleep test work? Is it as good as going into a hospital? It's better.
Wow.
So lots of these questions. I know, we have a limited amount of time. So maybe, let me know what you think were the most important things that I can share with your audience.
Yeah, well, so I think one of the problems, and this is definitely the case for me with sleep apnea, is that there's not an immediate noticeable threat, in the sense that if I don't look when I cross the street, I am gonna immediately know that I messed up when that bus smacks me dead in the. So with sleep apnea, as you know, since my machine broke, I've not been using the machine for a couple days now, as I'm working to get the replacement. But I feel fine.
Yeah.
So every other person is going to think they feel fine, other than snoring, right? Which means I have to now sleep on the sofa. Other than that, I don't know that anything is wrong. So what happens to people when they have this? You can speak on that. And using
Yeah.
even me, which you said was mild, what happens to
Yeah.
someone like me?
Yeah, and that's a great point. And when I said that before, I was a cancer surgeon and now I'm treating sleep. When you have cancer, it's an emergency. You got to be treated, and there's no question about it. It's not, hey, I'll do it in a couple of years. So let me give you a pretty scary statistic about sleep apnea. That for people that have severe sleep apnea, the survival rate of that disease is really 15 years. In 15 years, half of the people die from the complications of sleep apnea, right? So it doesn't happen like you got hit by the bus when you're crossing the street. But over a 15-year period, half of the people will die from the complications of sleep apnea that is untreated. And if those people are treated, the death rate is like 1 or 2%. It goes back to normal. So, there's other disorders that happen and people can die of. But 50% in 15 years, that's really, really serious. And, every once in a while we hear of, famous football players that die at, 45 and going, well, why? Well, that's because they had sleep apnea probably since they were 20, 25, or 30, and they were untreated. So I can tell you this, that many people may say, well, what is sleep apnea? I don't know. And I'll tell you, sleep apnea is when you stop breathing when you're asleep. What is the most common sign of sleep apnea? You mentioned it. It's snoring. And it's snoring that is so bad that you get kicked out of the bedroom. If your snoring is so bad that you get kicked out of the bedroom, I will bet anything that I have that you have sleep apnea and you need to be treated. Okay. So that's pretty clear. And, I think that most people who have the snoring and get kicked out of the bedroom and don't do anything about it is in part because they're afraid of what needs to be done. And they've had bad experience with, calling the doctor's office and can't get an appointment. I'm a doctor and I got the same problem. I call my doctor's office, I can't make an appointment. So we've made that a lot easier. But people need to know that, don't worry, because you can be diagnosed by receiving a UPS envelope with a little sensor that we'll send to your home, which is covered by medical insurance and doesn't at all cost a fortune. And that in terms of treatments, a lot of people are also scared of the treatment, and that's why they don't want to deal with it,
What
and
is annoying? The mask, but you adapt, you get used to it. Like I actually kind of gotten comfortable with it. But at first, I used to feel claustrophobic. Like I'd feel like oddly like I was trapped and suffocating. It's weird, but that was in the very beginning, and now I've gotten comfortable with what I kind of like to wear it when I sleep.
yeah,
So, but
yeah,
I never noticed, sorry to cut you off. I never noticed an immediate change other than the snoring, right? But it's one of those things that, if you drink a cup of coffee or you take a fat burner pill or something, you're going to immediately be like, woo, you notice it right away.
yeah.
But with this, it's like you said, it's a slow thing to kill you. And it's also just staying alive.
Yeah.
You're thinking, so what is it that happens? Well, you're not dead.
Well, it's more than that. So I'll tell you that in the fact that you didn't notice an improvement right away, you're in the minority. because, you know, I've treated 10,000 patients with sleep apnea, and whether I treat them with surgery or with a mouth guard that they can put in at night that helps their breathing and stops their snoring, or the Cpap, a lot of the people tell me after the first night, I felt like I came out of a fog that I'd been in for 20 years. And that's not for everybody, and it wasn't for you, but for a lot of people. So for the majority of the people, they actually notice that from one night, the first night of treatment. CPAP takes a little bit longer because, as you mentioned, you have to kind of adapt to the treatment. You have to get used to the treatment, but some of the other treatments happen, the improvement is seen much more quickly. So for example, I can't remember whether we talked about the mouth guards with you or not, or
We did.
right? So the mouth guards sometimes have a more immediate effect, and people notice it because there's not really much you need to learn. I mean, we make sure it fits in your mouth. You put it in your mouth, you go to sleep, and you wake up and you go, wow, I didn't wake up 3 times last night, and I feel like I got more energy, and I didn't get nudged, or I didn't get kicked out of the bed because I wasn't snoring. So a lot of people do actually notice improvement right away. But, you know, as I said, the kind of the fear of the unknown is, or the fear of the known, because a lot of people see the CPAP and they say, I just don't want to do it no matter what, right? And so at BlueSleep, we provide the medical mouth guards as well, covered by insurance, which is very rare because most sleep centers they simply don't provide the treatment because they have no experience doing it, you know?
What do you think about, like, so for instance, I use a full face mask because I can't really breathe through my nose. It's always like that. Whether I have a cold or not, it's stuffed. Yeah. So if I put the nose one, it just doesn't work for me. It causes me discomfort. And somebody suggested, and you can correct me, removing adenoids. I don't know if that makes any sense. And they said opening up space in my nose, but I wonder if that's worth the hassle or just using a full face.
Right. So that's a very good question, and there's a very clear answer to that. You know, I did mention that I was a cancer surgeon, but the cancer surgery is actually a subspecialty of ear, nose, and throat surgery. So I've done lots and lots and lots of nose surgery for people who couldn't breathe. And while the nose surgery can help you breathe better through the nose, that is a solution down the road that I recommend if people have tried a full face mask. If you can't breathe through your nose and your sleep doctor gave you a CPAP that only covers your nose, that's obviously not going to work. You don't need to be a doctor to figure that out. But unfortunately, I've seen lots of patients who were given a CPAP with the wrong mask. And the answer is simply, hey, change the mask and get a mask that fits over the nose and mouth. Now, why does it have to fit over the nose and mouth? Because if you just have a mask that fits just over the mouth, the air is going to blow in the mouth and it's going to come out of the nose. Even if your nose is congested, it will leak out of the nose, right? So if you're using the mask to breathe through the mouth, you need it to cover, the mouth, and it's going to cover at least part of the nose. So that answer is pretty clear. You know, don't go for surgery. You know, that's a last resort. The first thing is, the mask. Now, there are some people that say, I feel claustrophobic. I really can't breathe with a big mask over my face. So, I do want to have my nose fixed. It's something to consider. But that's something to consider after COVID, first of all, because people shouldn't be having elective surgery right now until everybody's vaccinated and all that kind of stuff. But it's a good question.
All right. Try to do something else I wanted. It came back to me. Even after all these years of using it, I personally, again, you say I'm in the minority, so I don't know how everybody else is, but I've never felt any difference. I wear it because I am aware of the dangers. Do you think maybe something else is off, or
yes. Yeah. So that's a good question. I'll tell you, the statistics are the following. 30%, so I told you the majority of people feel better, and it's about 70%, but 30% of people on CPAP do not feel better. and they still feel sleepy. Now, if they don't get the proper follow-up, CPAP is not always prescribed by sleep specialists. Often it's prescribed by a primary care doctor, and they're very busy and they don't really have the specialty and understanding about all the things that go on in sleep. But 30% of people continue to have what's called excessive daytime sleepiness. They still feel sleepy during the day. And for those people, there are additional treatments that are useful, sometimes medication to help them focus during the day. And I'm not talking about amphetamines, which, have lots of side effects, but other types of medications that help you focus without the side effects. All right. So the other issue is that, even if you're using a CPAP and your sleep apnea is controlled, but you don't sleep enough hours, you're still going to have a problem. So the ideal number of hours to really allow you to function properly during the day is at least 7.5 to 8 hours. And, a lot of people don't prioritize sleep, right? They don't really even give themselves enough time to get the 7.5 or 8 hours. So, those are the first things I tell people to do. Kind of change your schedule a little bit and realize sleep is really important. With good sleep, you have more chance of controlling medical conditions like blood pressure, like diabetes. Let me tell you something else about good sleep and controlling sleep apnea. It's easier to lose weight. It's easier to lose weight if you sleep more hours and if you control your sleep apnea. And conversely, if you have sleep apnea that is not treated, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to lose weight, and you'll probably gain weight. Because people with sleep apnea that's untreated have all sorts of changes that occur in their body. Metabolic changes, changes with insulin, changes with appetite. There are interesting studies that have looked at patients who have untreated sleep apnea, and they found that they crave carbohydrates and sweets and foods that are good for survival, because you're basically drowning at night, right? You're not breathing. So during the day, you're trying to survive. You're making the wrong decisions about, foods. And of course, if you haven't slept well, you don't even have the energy to exercise. So that's something else that's just completely off the radar screen of most people and many doctors who don't realize that if you don't treat sleep apnea, you're not going to control appetite. You're not going to control weight. You're not going to control blood pressure. You're not going to control diabetes, and people are going to feel terrible. People with untreated sleep apnea often have mood disorders, which means they have anxiety, they have depression. And the answer is not to give them pills. The answer is to get them sleeping, to diagnose their sleep apnea. And that, for, as I said, for 70% of patients, they notice an amazing change in how they feel. And for those that don't, you and I are going to continue to work to get you to that level where you're going to have energy and you're going to feel better in all
Well, that's great. I look forward to that. I generally feel okay. I just never noticed that night and day difference that I was told I'd see. It was just that. But even with that, I always continued to use it, right? Today I'm going to call my healthcare provider, not the healthcare, the insurance people, to figure out what to do. I couldn't get hold of anybody over the weekend because of the
And if we haven't put you on the schedule to discuss the oral appliance as an alternative, we'll do that. A lot of the thing about the difference between a CPAP and a mouth guard is that people who have CPAP tend to use it not all night for many reasons. Whereas people who have a mouth guard for sleep apnea, they put it in at night, they take it out in the morning. So they get more hours protected from sleep apnea with the mouth guard. And the mouth guard works very, very well, especially for people that don't have what I call extremely severe sleep apnea. And for your listeners who know the details about sleep apnea scores, the severity of sleep apnea is determined by a score called the AHI, which is the Apnea Hypopnea Index. And what that is the number of times you stop breathing per hour, plus the number of times that your breathing slows down and your oxygen drops. And if that number is below 50 an hour, which is a lot, the oral appliances work very, very well. And we've had patients who've had success even with much higher scores who just couldn't tolerate CPAP. They just couldn't use it. And they said, I need something else. And they did very well with the mouth guards. Again, life-changing experience with controlling the sleep apnea for 70% of patients. It's not 100%, right? And then for the others, we've got work to do, and we will, and we will get you feeling a lot better.
The oral appliance is interesting because, I mean, it's an option too to try something. And in my case right now, because I'm going through Invisalign treatment, I have to wait some time, and then I'm a little reluctant because I'm supposed to wear the retainers at night. So that's something I'd have to figure out, because then I'd be basically wearing them during the day, which
Right.
means it's like a perpetual Invisalign treatment,
Yeah,
which
that's
I'm a
right.
little,
You're right,
you
and we
know.
had that discussion, and that's a good point because more and more people are doing Invisalign these days, and it is convenient to wear the retainers at night because you're asleep.
Mm.
But with our dentists, we've had these discussions, and they say as long as you wear the retainers at some point during the week and during the day, you're okay. You don't have to necessarily wear it all night every night to maintain the position of your teeth. But the
Gotcha.
other thing I like to tell people is that it's nice to have straight teeth, but you got to be alive, right? If you're not alive, you have straight teeth, doesn't really matter.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, morbid, but true.
Yeah, yeah. 'Cause I always joked about that when I did like really extreme dieting and stuff. And back when I was younger, I was really hardcore. And mind you, even when I had a six pack, I snored like a truck.
People that are overweight sometimes have their weight in different parts of their body, and men and women carry their weight in different. When they gain weight, they gain it in different places. And if you gain weight and your neck gets bigger, and in fact, if your neck size is above, about 18 and a half inches, and whether that's because of weight gain or whether that's because of muscle gain. So
Mm.
if you work out and really you're a bodybuilder and your neck size is 18 and a half or 19 inches, you have sleep apnea, even though you're technically in great shape. All right.
Oh,
It's like the football players that, have 21-inch necks. They all have sleep apnea. And, and and by definition, that's not good. And you're not in good shape. Now, at the same time, there are very skinny people who have sleep apnea. And that's because kind of what you were alluding to, the shape of the jaw, the shape of the deeper part of the throat, whether or not they're breathing through the nose or the mouth. But some people just have a very narrow mouth and throat. They're not overweight, and those people will have sleep apnea. And, Angel, I can tell you that about 4% of children have sleep apnea, and it's primarily because they have very big tonsils, right? So
mm.
the big tonsils, you had mentioned adenoids. Adenoids are like tonsils, but they're in the back of the nose. And if you have very big adenoids and if you have very big tonsils, you're going to snore because that is taking up space in your throat. And there's just not enough room for the air to go through. So everything's moving around at night, and you're having snoring, and you're going to have some sleep apnea. Most adults don't no longer have their adenoids because they've shrunk, but some adults do have big tonsils. And in some cases, telemedicine doesn't always show me so well what's going on in the mouth and the throat, but usually I can see whether or not people have very big tonsils. And if people are very skinny and their tongue is not too big and they have very big tonsils, removing the tonsils can be a cure for those patients.
Oh, wow. When I was a kid, they wanted to remove my tonsils. I used to get a lot of throat infections. And to this day, those things are like,
Yeah.
they're humongous back there. I could go, like, ugh, I could
Yeah.
feel them like they're,
Well,
you know,
you're gonna you should come in person. I see patients in person once a week just for that, to do what I call a nasal endoscopy. I actually have disposable nasal scopes that I can, like little fiber that goes in through the nose so I can see what's going on. And in some cases I can make the determination that in your case, if your tonsils were removed, I would estimate you have a 95% chance of being cured. So we will meet in
wow,
person so that we can see that.
wow, that's wild. Yeah, that's a discomfort that I'd bear. if it would address that, because I remember when I was younger, but it wasn't because of snoring. It was because I always had throat infections.
Yeah.
They said those things got to come out, but at that time I was still very young. So
Yep.
they said when you turn, I think they said 13, 14, a little bit older, they're like, they got to go out. And of course I ducked that.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really wants that, and it's painful, but it's definitely worth a look because if removing the tonsils really gives you a high chance of being cured of sleep apnea, it's nice not to have to use either Cpap or mouth guard. The number of patients who benefit from that in the general population of sleep apnea patients is less than 1%, so it's very rare.
Oh, okay.
But you may be one of them, so we'll have to check that out.
Right. Now, in addition to sleep apnea, what are what helps with insomnia? People who have.
So, there are different kinds of insomnia. There are insomnia that are related to medical conditions. There's insomnia, especially in women, that's related to menopause. And then there's sleep onset insomnia. So people that just can't fall asleep, right? And then there's people that fall asleep but then wake up. So for people that just can't fall asleep, it's frequently related to bad behavior and bad habits, I would say, spending too much time with activities close to bedtime that really are waking you up. And the most common one is staring at the blue screen on your phone, because, that will tell your brain it's not time to go to sleep yet. It thinks that blue light is the blue light from the sky and it's keeping you awake. Literally, it does that because the brain produces the hormone melatonin, which we've all heard of, and melatonin makes us sleep. The one thing that stops the production of melatonin in the brain is blue light. So turns out that the blue light of the screens is very similar to the blue light of the sky. And that has caused something interesting, that about 100 years ago, we used to sleep about 9 to 9.5 hours population. Now, 100 years later today, the average sleep time is closer to 7 hours, right? And things started getting bad from the time that Edison invented the light bulb and artificial light. But now with the blue light from the phones, it's even worse. So what can be done? The first thing that can be done for insomnia is to evaluate your habits. Are you doing all the wrong things, around bedtime? You have to kind of calm down, have a routine, something that will take your mind off of all the hundreds of things that you've done, that day, and something that will try to remove all of the stress from what's going to happen tomorrow. Now, sometimes people can do that with, good habits and reading a calming book at night, and that's the first thing to do. But sometimes people need help, and sometimes they need some medication, at least temporarily, to help them fall asleep. Then there's the people that wake up in the middle of the night. And to be honest with you, most of the time that's actually not insomnia. Most of the time people are waking up because they stop breathing, which of course is sleep apnea. So a lot of the insomnia that people say they have is really not insomnia. It's really sleep apnea. And listen, there's some people that have a lot of difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep, and that's when they really need to see sleep specialists, and we have things that we can do. Can we cure everybody? No, but we can help, a lot of people. A lot of people also are taking, over-the-counter medications that are the wrong medications, especially the over-counter sleeping aids. A lot of people are taking melatonin, but they're taking doses that are much too high. That's over-the-counter. And so, frequently, after 1 or 2 visits with our sleep specialists who really are focused on that, and I have an associate who's focused on insomnia, we can help a lot of those people.
Right. Yeah, I tried melatonin in the past, and it did some weird stuff to me. It made me feel numb. It was very weird. I have this other product now from Charlotte's Web with CBD in it that I don't take often. Every once in a while, if I want to make sure I knock out right away, I'll pop 2 of those gummies they have melatonin and CBD, and I'm gone for that night, and I'm done. you know, but I try not to, I don't want to create dependencies or anything. So
Right.
I try, and generally I'm tired when I go to sleep, you know. My problem is that I tend to stay up pretty late playing video games
Yeah.
or watching Netflix and then that makes the day difficult because you got to get up at 8 in the morning for work. You're going to sleep at 3 at night.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
okay. Well, now I know why you don't feel good during the day. Solve that problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have to, I know I have to work on that. Like I definitely, you know, but this is a new development, by the way. This is only in the last few months, you
Yeah.
know, that I started doing that,
Yeah.
because
And
I'm home.
yeah, you and a lot of people, you and a lot of people, because you have to wake up at 8 in the morning, but a lot of people, don't have to wake up to commute. They're taking 1 or 2 hours off from the morning. So they've shifted their sleep cycle. They're going to
Right.
bed 1 or 2 hours later and they're waking up 1 or 2 hours later. And that's okay. But some people still expect to fall asleep at 10 p.m. So they get in bed at 10 and they're not falling asleep till midnight, but that's because they're sleeping till, like 8 in the morning. So
Mhm.
their rhythm has shifted. And we've seen lots of people that have complained about that. And we tell them, well, if you can wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning, you don't have to go to sleep until midnight, you know? So it's been interesting. COVID has definitely changed people's behavior. Also, they're not going out as much during the day. They're not getting as much sunlight, and sunlight is very important to tell the brain it's daytime now. You got to wake up and feel good. If you don't do that, your brain still's not sure whether it's daytime or nighttime, and so that's really contributed to a lot of the sleep disorders that we've been seeing that people have contacted us about.
Did you notice an uptick? And like you mentioned during COVID, like all of a sudden a lot more.
Yes, there were. So we noticed it in terms of the people contacting us. We had about 17% more business last year. Most businesses went down like dramatically. We had
Right,
a lot,
right.
we had a lot more contacting us, and there were studies in the medical literature that were noticing that yes, there were more disorders. Definitely, not being able to fall asleep and waking up is also related to anxiety, and obviously, look, these are very dramatic and scary times. They continue to be, and they will be, for another year or whatever. And the impact of COVID is just enormous, and it's definitely impacted sleep, for lots of patients.
Well, yeah, it's definitely crazy times.
Yeah,
I'm going to make some calls today and hopefully get this thing ordered.
yeah,
You know, yeah,
yeah,
I really didn't get to do it over the weekend because everything is shut down. And they were like, well, we're not going to even ship it until next week, dude. So if you have questions, then don't rush it. Just so I said, okay, you know what? I'll wait till today. I'll make some calls and,
yeah,
just trying to figure out, which machine to get. And
yeah.
it's all, you know,
If you have
so
any questions, yeah, definitely, reach out to us. You know how to contact us. We get back to everybody, before the end of the day. And there's these days, relatively good feedback from users on all the websites, but sometimes there's kind of medical questions that, individual users haven't really grasped. And so we're there to help on that front.
yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with my listeners, talk with me, and definitely appreciate your help with getting this thing sorted out. Because like I said, today is Tuesday, and if I had not reached out to you guys, I wouldn't have even had my initial consultation yet. So
Yeah.
it's mind blowing. The guys like, oh, this is super important. You have to do this. Well, why are you making me wait weeks and weeks to see me? Like,
Hey, but listen, Angel, you know what? At one point, we were dealing with doctors in Maine, and there it was 6 months to a year to get into a sleep lab.
wow,
Can you imagine?
wow, wow.
So yeah, it's crazy, and I'm glad you were smart enough to find us online. How did you find us?
Actually, through I went to my it's called my UHC, the
Mhm. Yeah,
website for United Healthcare,
yep,
and you were listed there.
great.
And
Yeah, yeah, that's because we participate with insurance. We're in network, so there's no surprises.
actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was through ZocDoc.
Okay.
Actually, I think it was through ZocDoc. You know what? It was through ZocDoc because I remember I looked through people that were listed under my insurance,
Mhm.
and you were one of them, and you had an appointment Monday. Now it's clear to me. I saw the Monday appointment, and I didn't take it because I was trying to work through my, my original sleep doctor,
Yeah.
and I couldn't. Then when I actually got through to that guy, which took me many, many hours, um, they said I had to wait weeks. And I said, you know what, screw this guy. And I went back and I had lost the Monday opportunity, but you had a Tuesday slot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I jumped on that one. So it was definitely through ZocDoc. Yeah. So through ZocDoc, which makes life super easy as it is, making appointments and stuff is where everything started.
Yeah. 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 And if people remember BlueSleep, it's even easier because ZocDoc asks the customers to put in information that ZocDoc needs, but it's not what the doctor needs. So now if you go to bluesleep.com, you get the right away. We get all the medical information we need. So that by the time you see the doctor, we have all the answers to the questions. We have quick conversation and answer the questions, get people going. Really, really quick and easy. Glad
Very cool.
glad
Very
it worked
cool.
out, and we'll stay in touch very soon. We're going to follow up with you, make sure you're doing well, and listen, do as best as we can to make you a Superman.
It's the best thing we can do, right? Our best effort is the best we can do.
That's right. All right.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Okay.
taking the time. I appreciate it.
All right, Angel. Stay well.
All right, you too. Thanks.